The crash on Valhalla. The ship shuddered violently as it tore through the alien atmosphere, its metal skin glowing white-hot against the friction of entry. Captain Darius Holt gripped the controls, knuckles bone-white, sweat rolling down his temples. The Astra Viker, a sleek reconnaissance vessel built for speed, not battle, was being pushed far beyond its limits. Warning: hull integrity at 15%. Impact imminent. The ship's AI droned coldly, oblivious to the chaos engulfing Darius. Red lights flashed, alarms screamed, and the cockpit trembled like an enraged beast. Through the viewport, the planet came into focus. Vast emerald forests stretching endlessly, canopies glowing faintly like the surface of a gem. But beneath the beauty was a silent promise of danger. "Come on, you piece of junk, hold together," Darius muttered, jerking the controls to stabilize. His voice, though firm, held an edge of desperation. The vessel bucked again. The starboard wing snapped, and the ship spiraled downward. Darius barely had time to strap himself in before the world turned into a cacophony of groaning metal, fire, and shattered glass. The crash was cataclysmic. When silence finally reigned, Darius hung limp in his harness, his breathing ragged and labored. The acrid scent of smoke filled the cabin as small fires flickered in the control panels. Dazed, he unbuckled his restraints and dropped heavily to the floor, his boots landing with a thud. Pain shot through his side, but he gritted his teeth and stumbled toward the jagged opening that had once been the hull. Outside lay a world unlike any Darius had seen before. Towering trees loomed like ancient sentinels, their bark a dark obsidian black. Leaves shimmered, pulsing faintly with iridescent light, as though the forest itself were breathing. The ground was soft beneath his boots, layered with a bed of blue moss that stretched as far as he could see. Strange sounds echoed through the air, low hums, faint whispers, the clicking of unseen creatures. Darius exhaled slowly. Well, I'm definitely not in Kansas anymore. He tugged his survival pack free from the wreckage, wincing at the effort. Inside were the bare essentials: a plasma cutter, rations, a water purifier, a communicator that blinked dead, and his trusty pulse pistol, a small weapon, but reliable. Slinging the pack over his shoulder, Darius scanned the horizon. Smoke curled upward from the ruined Astra Vigor behind him. It was clear the ship wasn't going anywhere. First things first, he muttered to himself, his voice the only sound against the eerie hush of the jungle. Find shelter, then figure out where the hell I've landed. He trudged forward, brushing aside low-hanging vines that glowed faintly when touched. Every step was careful, every movement deliberate, though his senses screamed that he was being watched. The forest was too quiet, too aware. As he pushed deeper into the alien wilderness, Darius couldn't shake the feeling that he wasn't alone. Shadows shifted at the edges of his vision, only to vanish when he turned to look. Leaves rustled without wind, and once he swore he heard footsteps, soft, deliberate, following him. Eyes open, Holt, he murmured, his hand drifting toward the grip of his pistol. Suddenly, a guttural growl echoed through the clearing, freezing him in place. It came from his left, deep within the shadows of the underbrush. Darius's pulse spiked. Slowly, he turned his head, drawing the pistol in a single, smooth motion. "Show yourself." The underbrush exploded. A creature leaped into the clearing, landing with bone-jarring weight. Darius barely managed to steady his weapon before he got a good look at it. The beast was massive, easily 10 feet tall, with thick, muscular limbs and a hide the color of slate. Its eyes glowed a hungry crimson, its maw lined with serrated teeth that dripped venom. Long, jagged claws gouged the earth as it snarled. Darius tightened his grip on the pistol. "I really hate Mondays." The creature lunged. Darius fired. A bolt of blue energy struck the beast's shoulder, sending it reeling back with a pained roar. But it wasn't enough. It shook off the impact, its crimson eyes narrowing on its prey. Darius's heart pounded as he stepped back, firing shot after shot, the plasma bolts searing through the air. The beast was relentless. It barreled toward him, jaws snapping, claws slicing through trees like they were paper. Darius turned and sprinted, his boots pounding against the moss-covered ground. He darted through the jungle, adrenaline coursing through his veins. The beast crashed after him, tearing a path of destruction as it chased him down. Suddenly, the ground beneath Darius gave way. He tumbled forward, sliding down a steep incline. Dirt and moss flew into the air as he scrambled for purchase, his fingers clawing at the loose earth. When he hit the bottom, his body collided hard with something solid. Groaning, he sat up, blinking through the dust. Human. The voice was soft, melodic, and unmistakably alien. Darius looked up sharply. Before him stood a figure, bathed in soft golden light. She was tall, her skin a pale silver that seemed to glow faintly. Her hair cascaded down her back in long strands of shimmering white, and her eyes, vivid gold and piercing, locked onto his with an intensity that left him breathless. She wore a sleek, form-fitting suit etched with intricate patterns that pulsed faintly, like circuitry brought to life. "You are not welcome here," she said, her voice calm but edged with warning. "And yet you come." Darius coughed, pushing himself to his feet. His pulse pistol was still in his hand, though he hesitated to raise it. "Not exactly by choice, lady. My ship crashed." She tilted her head slightly, her gaze unrelenting. "This world does not forgive trespassers." "Yeah. Well, neither does my luck." Darius shook his head, still trying to process the situation. "Who are you?" The woman's lips curved into a faint, enigmatic smile. "I am Seraph, guardian of Valhera." Darius exhaled sharply, eyeing the glow of her skin and the dangerous calm in her expression. "Guardian, huh? Look, Seraph, I'm not here to cause trouble. I just want to survive long enough to get out of this place." Seraph's gaze darkened slightly, her voice dropping to a near whisper. "Survival here is earned, not given. And you will need me to earn it." Darius arched a brow. "Is that an offer to help?" Her golden eyes narrowed. "It is a warning, human. Touch what you do not understand, and you will not leave this world alive." Before Darius could reply, a bone-rattling roar shook the ground beneath them. The beast had found him. Its crimson eyes blazed through the shadows as it bounded toward the clearing, fury in its every movement. Seraph glanced at the creature and back to Darius, her lips curling into a slight smirk. "Prove you are worthy, and I might save you." Darius tightened his grip on the pistol, the roar of the beast drowning out all other sounds. "Well," he muttered, "I guess that's as good a deal as I'm getting." And with that, the fight for survival on Valhera began. The hunter and the guardian. The roar of the beast shattered the silence, reverberating through the dense alien jungle. Darius tightened his grip on the pulse pistol, his breathing shallow as the towering creature barreled toward him, its crimson eyes glowing with primal rage. Every fiber of his being screamed for him to run, but the sharp gaze of Seraph, the ethereal guardian, held him in place. "Stand your ground," she said calmly, her voice a stark contrast to the chaos unfolding. Her pale silver form shimmered faintly as though absorbing the very light around them. "Easy for you to say," Darius shot back, sidestepping just as the beast's claws gouged deep trenches in the ground where he had been standing a second earlier. He fired another shot, the plasma bolt searing across its chest, but barely slowing it down. The monster snarled, unfazed, its teeth dripping venom that hissed as it struck the earth. Seraph moved with liquid grace, stepping between Darius and the creature. "You fight like prey. Stop running. Stop running. That thing is trying to eat me." Darius barked, darting sideways as the beast lunged again, its bulk crashing through trees with bone-jarring force. Seraph turned sharply, her golden eyes locked on the monster. She raised her hand, and the intricate patterns on her suit pulsed, emanating waves of golden light. The air around her shimmered, vibrating with energy. The beast roared as though in sudden pain, its crimson gaze shifting to Seraph. It hesitated. What? What did you just do? Darius asked, blinking in disbelief as the monstrous creature stumbled back, snarling in confusion. Seraph's tone remained steady, though her expression grew stern. This is no ordinary predator. The jungle here answers to no one but itself, unless forced. I have bought us time, but it will not last. Darius exhaled, wiping sweat from his brow. And you couldn't have done that sooner. She shot him a sharp look, though there was the faintest twitch of amusement at the corner of her lips. You needed to learn. Learn what? That I'm breakfast. Seraph turned, her golden gaze piercing his. That survival here will not come by running or fighting blindly. This world is not like yours. Everything is alive. Everything has purpose. If you listen, it will teach you how to survive. Darius stared at her for a moment, her words sinking in. Around them, the jungle seemed to grow still, as though eavesdropping on their conversation. The bioluminescent leaves pulsed faintly, and the whispers of unseen creatures drifted through the heavy air. Darius couldn't shake the feeling that the planet itself was sentient, watching his every move. Great, he muttered. So now I have to make friends with an angry forest. Seraph began walking again, her steps silent despite the thick undergrowth. Follow me. We cannot linger. Darius glanced back at the shadows where the beast had retreated before jogging to catch up. Where are we going? To higher ground. It is safer, Seraph replied, glancing at him briefly. And I will determine if you are worth saving. Gee, thanks for the vote of confidence. The path of secrets. The climb was brutal. Darius trailed behind Seraph as they ascended the steep hillside, his boots sinking into the soft blue moss that carpeted the ground. Vines hung down like curtains, some of them pulsing faintly when disturbed. Twice, he swore he heard whispers when he brushed against them. Are those vines talking? Darius asked, panting as he pulled himself up onto a ledge. They are warning the forest of your presence, Seraph replied matter-of-factly, her movements impossibly graceful despite the incline. Valhalla is alive. It remembers those who harm it. Darius frowned. Sounds like you're saying this place has a grudge. She paused and turned, her golden gaze locking with his. It does. Humanity has been here before. Darius stopped mid-step. Wait. What? People, my people, have been to this planet. Seraph's expression was unreadable. Yes, and they did not listen. They took what was not theirs to take. The words hit Darius harder than he expected. What happened to them? Her gaze shifted to the jungle below, her voice dropping to a near whisper. They became part of the forest. Darius swallowed hard, his pulse quickening. He didn't like the sound of that. The shimmering ruins. As they reached the top of the hill, the jungle parted to reveal an astonishing sight. Sprawled before them was a massive ruin, ancient structures that jutted up from the earth like broken teeth. The stone buildings pulsed faintly with the same bioluminescent energy that flowed through the forest, veins of light running along their surfaces as though the ruins themselves were alive. Darius stood still, taking it all in. This isn't natural, is it? No, Seraph said softly, her voice laced with reverence. This is the work of the first ones. Who are they? Seraph looked at him, her golden eyes unblinking. The creators of Valhalla. Darius frowned. You mean aliens? You're saying they built all this? Yes, Seraph replied. And they left their secrets behind. Secrets that humans came here to exploit. As they walked deeper into the ruins, Darius noticed strange carvings etched into the stone. Spirals, glyphs, and symbols that seemed to shift when viewed from different angles. A shiver ran up his spine. The silence here felt heavier, as though the very air held its breath. Seraph turned sharply, her voice low and urgent. Do not touch anything. Darius rolled his eyes. Do I look that dumb to you? Yes. Before Darius could retort, a deep rumble echoed through the ruins. He froze, his hand instinctively drifting to his pulse pistol. What was that? Seraph didn't answer. Instead, she placed a hand on one of the glowing stones. The energy flared brighter, casting her silver form in golden light. She turned to him, her voice grim. They know we are here. Who's they? The ground shook again, harder this time, and in the distance, dark shapes began to move, shadows detaching from the stone structures and rising to their feet. They were humanoid, but their bodies were twisted and jagged, formed from stone and pulsing energy. Darius took a step back, his pulse quickening. What the hell are those things? Seraph's gaze narrowed. The Sentinels. They protect the secrets of Valhalla. Darius raised his weapon, his voice laced with frustration. And let me guess, now they're going to try to kill us. Seraph nodded. You catch on quickly, human. The first Sentinel let out a hollow roar, its stone limbs grinding against one another as it charged forward. Darius fired, the plasma bolt striking its chest, but barely leaving a mark. Fantastic, he muttered. You've got to be kidding me. Seraph's voice was steady. Run. For once, Darius didn't argue. The echoes of Valhalla. Darius sprinted through the crumbling ruins, his boots pounding against ancient stone as the Sentinels closed in behind him. Their hollow roars echoed through the air, vibrating through his bones like an unseen force. Each step felt heavier, as though the jungle and the ruins conspired to hold him back. Running again, human. Seraph's voice rang sharply through the chaos, though she moved effortlessly ahead, her silver form a beacon in the dim glow of the ruins. I'd argue this is tactical repositioning. Darius snapped back, breathless as he vaulted over a fallen column. The Sentinels, hulking figures of stone and pulsing energy, advanced with eerie precision. Their limbs scraped and cracked as they moved, leaving trails of faint luminescence in their wake. Darius glanced over his shoulder. They were gaining on him. One of the Sentinels raised its arm, and with a sound like grinding rock, it hurled a jagged boulder straight at Darius. He dove to the side, the projectile shattering against a wall and showering him with debris. Seriously, he growled, pushing himself up. What are these things? They are the guardians of this place, Seraph replied coolly, her voice unhurried despite the chaos. They protect the secrets of Valhalla, and they will not stop until we are gone, or destroyed. Perfect, Darius muttered, fumbling with his pulse pistol. Let's hope they're allergic to being shot. He fired a volley of plasma bolts at the nearest Sentinel. The glowing shots struck its chest, leaving molten scars but doing little to stop its approach. The Sentinel's jagged face turned toward him, its hollow gaze pulsing with energy that felt uncomfortably aware. They cannot be destroyed with your weapon, Seraph said sharply, gliding ahead like a ghost. Stop wasting time. Some of us don't have magic glow hands, Seraph. Darius shot back, though he followed her without hesitation. The path through the ruins narrowed, forcing them to squeeze through a gap in a shattered wall. Seraph ducked through effortlessly, her form disappearing into the shadows beyond. Darius scrambled after her, barely squeezing through before a massive stone fist crashed against the opening, sending cracks splintering through the wall. Darius stumbled into a large chamber on the other side, panting as he turned to Seraph. You're going to have to stop assuming I can keep up with you. Seraph ignored him, instead raising her hand toward the center of the chamber. The glow in her veins brightened, illuminating what lay before them. Darius's breath caught in his throat. It was a door, or something like one. A massive circular structure dominated the far wall, covered in swirling glyphs and intricate carvings that pulsed with soft blue light. At its center was a recess, shaped like an open palm, with faint lines of energy leading outward like veins of light. What is that? Darius asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The heart of Valhalla, Seraph replied, her tone reverent. It is the key to understanding this world, and perhaps the key to your survival. Darius blinked at her, And by perhaps, you mean? Seraph turned to him, her golden eyes unyielding. Touch it, and you may awaken what lies within, or it may kill you. Darius stared at her deadpan. You've got to work on your motivational speeches. The choice is yours, human, Seraph said. But the sentinels will not stop, and this chamber is our only sanctuary for now. A low rumble reverberated through the room, like a heartbeat shaking the earth. Darius glanced back toward the shattered entrance. Dust and debris tumbled from the ceiling as the sentinels' relentless pounding grew louder. They were breaking through. Well, Darius muttered, turning toward the door. I always was bad at choices. He approached the glowing structure slowly, his pulse hammering in his ears. The light from the glyphs seemed to pull him in, casting strange patterns across his skin. The recess in the center was now glowing brighter, its shape almost inviting. Darius hesitated, glancing back at Seraph. If this goes south, tell my story. Preferably with more heroism and fewer bad decisions. Seraph's lips curved faintly. Do it, or we both die. Great pep talk, Darius muttered. With a deep breath, he raised his hand and pressed it into the glowing recess. The moment his skin touched the surface, the glyphs flared to life, flooding the room with searing light. Energy surged through his body, overwhelming him like a current of fire and ice. Darius cried out, dropping to his knees as the power raced through every nerve, every cell. He could hear whispers, thousands of them, echoing in his mind, words in a language he couldn't comprehend. And then, just as suddenly, the light vanished. Darius fell forward, gasping for air as the room returned to its dim glow. He lifted his head, the echo of whispers still lingering in his mind. Slowly, he looked up at the door. It was open. A deep vibration hummed through the chamber as the massive stone structure shifted, revealing a path beyond. Faint golden light spilled out, illuminating a staircase that spiraled downward into the earth. Darius staggered to his feet, his body still tingling with residual energy. He turned to Seraph, who stood watching him with an expression he couldn't quite read. You survived, she said softly, almost as though she were surprised. Yeah, Darius croaked, wiping sweat from his brow. Don't sound too thrilled about it. The sentinel's pounding suddenly ceased. A deep silence fell over the ruins, broken only by the faint hum of the open doorway. They will not follow us here, Seraph said, stepping toward the stairs. The heart recognizes you now. What does that even mean? Darius asked, following her. Seraph glanced back, her golden eyes glimmering in the faint light. It means Valhalla has chosen you. But now, the real test begins. Darius frowned. That wasn't the test. Seraph's expression darkened. No, that was the invitation. As they descended into the golden-lit depths of the ruins, Darius couldn't shake the sense that he'd just crossed a threshold he couldn't return from. Whatever lay ahead would either save him or destroy him, and somehow he wasn't sure which was worse. Beneath the surface, the golden light deepened as Darius and Seraph descended the spiral staircase, each step echoing like a heartbeat against the ancient stone. The air grew heavier with every passing second, filled with a strange hum that Darius swore he could feel vibrating through his chest. This wasn't silence. It was a sound too vast to hear, like standing at the edge of a storm. How far down does this go? Darius grumbled, his voice breaking the oppressive stillness. Sweat clung to his brow despite the cooling glow of the walls. The path ahead seemed endless. Far enough, Seraph replied cryptically. She moved effortlessly, her silver hair cascading down her back like molten light. Her calm unnerved him. He felt like a trapped insect, scuttling deeper into a predator's web. Darius shook his head. Of course it's far enough. You Guardians really love the vague answers, don't you? Seraph stopped abruptly and turned to him. The faint shimmer in her golden eyes made him freeze mid-step. There are answers down here that your kind is not ready to understand. Be careful what you wish for, human. Darius sighed, running a hand through his hair. I don't wish for any of this. I just want to get off this cursed rock." She turned back without another word, her silhouette framed by the glowing staircase. The chamber of voices. At last, they reached the bottom of the staircase. The path opened into an enormous underground chamber, vast and cathedral-like, with walls so tall they disappeared into shadows above. Lines of golden light traced intricate patterns across the stone floor, pulsing like a slow heartbeat. Massive crystalline formations jutted from the ground, glowing softly and humming with strange resonance. Darius's footsteps faltered as he stepped inside. The space seemed alive, aware, as though it had been waiting for him. "What is this place?" he whispered. Seraph stepped forward, her gaze fixed on the largest crystal at the center of the chamber. "This is where Valhera speaks." "Speaks," Darius echoed, frowning. "I'm not hearing much conversation." Seraph turned to him, her expression grave. "You will." Before he could ask what she meant, the hum of the chamber grew louder. The crystals glowed brighter, casting dazzling beams of light across the cavernous walls. Darius clapped his hands over his ears as a chorus of voices flooded his mind. Soft whispers, angry shouts, weeping laments, and something deeper, primal, echoing with power. The sound wasn't coming from the room. It was inside him. He dropped to his knees, gasping. "What's happening to me?" "Do not resist it," Seraph said firmly, though her voice sounded distant through the cacophony. "You must listen." Darius fought the instinct to push the voices away. Slowly, he let go, letting the sounds flood through him like an unstoppable tide. The whispers sharpened into words, fragments of meaning, carried on the voice of the jungle itself. They took. They burned. They broke the balance. The price must be paid. Images flashed in Darius's mind. Vast machines ripping through the jungle, massive harvesters tearing crystal veins from the earth, and towering alien structures collapsing into dust. The echoes of battles long past resonated in his bones. Valhera had been a paradise once, untouched and eternal. Then humanity had come. Darius gritted his teeth, his voice strained. "This isn't me. I didn't do any of this." The chamber responded, the voices turning sharp and accusatory. "You are one of them." Seraph stepped forward, her gaze calm but piercing. "The planet does not distinguish individuals, human. It remembers your kind. It judges you all." Darius staggered to his feet, fury and guilt mixing in his chest. "That's not fair. I didn't come here to destroy anything. My ship crashed. I didn't ask to be part of this." Seraph tilted her head slightly, studying him. "Then prove it." A trial of trust. The hum of the chamber receded, leaving only the faint glow of the crystals and Darius's ragged breathing. Seraph gestured to the central crystal, its light swirling like a vortex trapped inside its massive form. "Place your hand on it." Darius eyed her warily. "You're kidding. Every time I touch something here, it tries to kill me." "The crystal will see you for what you are," Seraph replied, her voice even. "If your intentions are true, it will allow you to leave this place. If not, it will judge you accordingly." Darius narrowed his eyes. "And what if I just walk out of here instead?" "You won't make it to the surface," Seraph said simply, gesturing at the walls. The intricate golden patterns were shifting, slowly, steadily, closing off the chamber. The way out was disappearing. Darius swore under his breath. Of course. No pressure or anything. He approached the central crystal, its light almost hypnotic. His fingers hovered just above the surface, heat radiating from the swirling energy within. His gut twisted with the memory of what the chamber had shown him. Humanity's mistakes, the destruction they'd caused. "Why me?" he muttered. "Because Valhera chose you," Seraph said softly. "Now it must see your truth." Gritting his teeth, Darius pressed his palm against the crystal. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a jolt of energy surged through him, stronger than anything he'd felt before. The golden vortex expanded, enveloping him completely. The voices returned, not angry this time, but questioning. They probed his mind, sifting through his thoughts, his memories, his fears. Darius clenched his fists, resisting the urge to pull away. "I'm not like them," he said through gritted teeth. "I'm not here to take or destroy. I just want to survive." The voices fell silent. The light faded, and Darius found himself standing alone in the dim chamber, his hand still pressed to the now cool surface of the crystal. Slowly, the golden patterns on the walls receded, revealing the path back to the surface. Seraph stepped forward, her expression softer than before. "It accepted you." Darius exhaled shakily, stepping back from the crystal. "Yeah, well, I'm not exactly feeling accepted." Seraph tilted her head slightly. "Valhalla has seen your truth. For now, it will let you live." Darius let out a bitter laugh. "That's reassuring." She turned toward the path ahead, her silver form glowing faintly against the shadows. "Come, there is much more to learn, and greater dangers yet to face." Darius followed her, his mind racing with questions. The trial had shown him glimpses of humanity's sins, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something far worse was waiting for them in the depths of Valhalla. And somehow, he knew this was only the beginning. The forest that sees. Darius emerged from the depths of the ruins with Seraph at his side, his legs aching and his mind still humming with the strange resonance of the crystal. The jungle welcomed them back, or so it seemed. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and a faint sweetness that had become unsettling rather than soothing. He paused, glancing over his shoulder at the now dormant ruins buried in the hillside. The weight of what he'd seen, the whispers, the judgment, sat heavy on his chest. It was as though the planet itself had looked into his soul, sifted through his intentions, and decided, for now, that he wasn't worth destroying. "You're quiet," Seraph said softly as she led him deeper into the forest. "Yeah, well," Darius muttered, dragging a hand through his hair. "Not every day a glowing rock judges whether or not I get to keep breathing." Seraph's faint smirk returned. "You survived. That is more than most." "Gee, thanks for the encouragement," he shot back. Around them, the jungle was alive with its unnerving stillness. It wasn't silence. There were faint sounds, the hum of insect wings, the occasional whisper of leaves brushing against one another. But it felt orchestrated, like 1,000 unseen eyes were watching and listening. "Does this forest think?" Darius asked suddenly, lowering his voice. "I mean, it's alive, sure, but it feels like it knows we're here." Seraph's golden eyes flickered in the dim light. "Valhalla sees. Valhalla remembers." "That's not creepy at all," Darius muttered under his breath. The path of living shadows. They pressed on, navigating through clusters of trees that seemed to grow impossibly close together, their glowing leaves forming a canopy of shifting light above. Darius's boots crunched on patches of pale moss, and every step felt deliberate, as though the jungle itself decided where he could place his feet. "This place is alive, but it's also guiding us, isn't it?" he asked cautiously. Seraph nodded, stepping effortlessly over a twisted root. "You are not wrong. Valhalla will direct those who walk its paths, but not all paths lead to safety." Darius frowned, feeling the hair on the back of his neck prickle. "And what happens if we step off the path?" Almost as if in response, something shifted in the shadows ahead. The vibrant greens and blues of the jungle faded into darker hues, as if the forest itself recoiled. Shapes began to emerge, thin, elongated figures, their outlines rippling like smoke. Their bodies seemed to absorb the faint bioluminescent light, casting shadows that shouldn't have been possible. Darius froze. "What the hell are those?" Seraph's gaze hardened, her voice low. "The Forgotten." The creatures moved without sound, gliding across the ground like specters. Their faces, or what passed for faces, were empty voids, eyes like pits of ink that stared unblinking. "Stay close to me," Seraph said sharply. "Don't have to tell me twice," Darius muttered, tightening his grip on his pulse pistol. The creatures moved closer, the air growing colder with their presence. Darius fired a shot instinctively, the plasma bolt slicing through one of the shadows. It passed through without resistance, as though the creature wasn't even there. "They can't be harmed," Seraph said, grabbing his arm and pulling him forward. "Run." Darius didn't need encouragement. He bolted after her, weaving between glowing trees and roots that seemed to twist just to get in his way. Behind him, the Forgotten gave chase, their forms rippling and distorting as they glided across the forest floor. The whispers began again, low, sinister voices that clawed at the edges of Darius's mind. They weren't words he could understand, but he felt the weight of them, like accusations hurled from unseen mouths. "Are they real?" Darius shouted as they ran. "They are echoes," Seraph replied, her tone clipped. "Manifestations of the jungle's memories, of those who came here and failed. And what happens if they catch us? You become one of them." Darius swore under his breath, doubling his pace. The Forgotten were relentless, their shadows flickering unnaturally as they closed the distance. One of them reached out, a long, smoky tendril stretching toward his arm. "No, no, no." He dove forward just as Seraph reached out, grabbing his collar and yanking him upright. She pulled him through a narrow archway formed by two colossal tree trunks. The moment they passed through, the whispers stopped, the air cleared, and the shadows dissipated as though they had never been there. Darius staggered forward, collapsing onto the soft moss beneath him. He pressed his palms to the ground, sucking in ragged breaths. "Tell me we don't have to do that again." Seraph stood tall, her gaze scanning the forest around them. "If you listen, the forest will guide you. If you don't, it will consume you." Darius rolled onto his back, staring up at the glowing canopy above. "Great. So now I have to trust a forest with a bad temper and a long memory. This just keeps getting better." The living clearing. Seraph pulled him to his feet, and together they stepped into a clearing bathed in golden light. Here, the jungle seemed almost serene. Strange flowers bloomed around the edges, their petals shifting colors in response to the faint breeze. At the center stood a massive tree, unlike any Darius had seen before. Its trunk pulsed with light, veins of energy coursing up into its branches like a circulatory system. "What is this place?" Darius whispered, awe creeping into his voice. Seraph approached the tree reverently, her hand brushing against its bark. "This is the heart seed. It is connected to everything you see, to Valhalla itself." Darius stepped closer, feeling warmth radiating from the tree. The hum of the jungle intensified here, not as an overwhelming roar, but as a steady rhythm, like a heartbeat. "And why are we here?" Seraph turned, her golden eyes locking onto his. "Because Valhalla has accepted you, but it has not yet trusted you. This is where you must prove yourself." Darius frowned, his shoulders tensing. "Prove myself." The ground beneath the heartseed began to shift, roots curling and twisting as though awakening. From the earth, something began to rise. Another figure, humanoid but formed entirely of roots and energy, its eyes glowing with an intensity that made Darius's stomach drop. Seraph stepped back, her voice low. "You must face it. Alone." Darius turned to her, eyes wide. "You're kidding." "I never kid." The root-formed figure moved toward him, its steps slow and deliberate. The hum of the forest grew louder, vibrating in Darius's chest. "This planet doesn't want me here," Darius shouted. Seraph's voice was calm but firm. "It does not want to destroy you either. Fight, human. Show Valhalla who you truly are." As the creature lunged, Darius's instincts kicked in. He gripped his pulse pistol tightly, squaring his stance. For the first time since crashing on this planet, he felt something shift within him. Not fear, not desperation, but resolve. "Fine," he muttered under his breath, his gaze hardening as the creature closed in. "Let's do this." And with that, he stepped forward, ready to fight. Trial of the heart seed. Darius planted his feet as the creature forged from roots and energy loomed closer, its form pulsing with the same rhythm as the jungle itself. Every movement it made was deliberate, the ground trembling with its steps, as though the planet held its breath to watch what would happen next. The figure had no face, yet its hollow eyes seemed to see everything. The weight of his choices, his thoughts, his doubts, it was as though the jungle itself had risen to test him. I thought we were past the judgment phase, Darius shouted, pulse racing as he aimed his pistol. Seraph's calm voice echoed from the edge of the clearing. This is not judgment, human. This is truth. You cannot fight what is part of the planet. You can only face it. That makes no sense, Darius barked. The creature lunged with a sound like tearing wood, its root-like limbs stretching toward him. Darius fired, his pulse pistol crackling with energy. The plasma bolt hit squarely in the chest of the creature, and fizzled. The energy dissipated into harmless sparks as though absorbed by the roots. Of course that didn't work, he muttered, diving to the side just as the creature's arm crashed into the ground, sending moss and dirt flying. Think, Darius. Seraph's voice cut through the chaos. The forest will not bow to force. It does not respond to violence. Darius gritted his teeth, rolling back to his feet. The creature turned, roots twisting unnaturally as it realigned toward him. No violence, he called out, ducking behind the massive trunk of the heartseed tree. Then what am I supposed to do? Hug it. Seraph didn't answer. The creature's footsteps grew closer, each one pounding like a war drum. Darius's heart hammered in his chest as he peeked around the tree. The creature was almost upon him, its hollow gaze locked on his position. He thought back to Seraph's words, "You cannot fight what is part of the planet. You can only face it." Face it, Darius whispered to himself, an idea sparking. The creature lunged again, and this time Darius didn't move. He dropped his weapon, planting himself firmly in place. His instincts screamed at him to run, but he clenched his fists and stayed still. The creature halted mid-swing. Its arm hovered mere inches from his face, the roots writhing like serpents. For a long, breathless moment, nothing moved. "Is that it?" Darius said softly, his voice steady. "You're not here to kill me, are you?" The creature tilted its head, the motion eerily human. Its glowing eyes burned into his, but the violence in its form seemed to waver. Slowly, the roots withdrew, curling back as though testing him. "I'm not here to take from this planet," Darius continued, his voice calm but firm. "I don't want to harm it, or you. I just want to survive and get out of here." The creature's form began to shift. The pulsing light in its chest dimmed slightly, and its jagged edges smoothed, roots unraveling into softer patterns. It no longer looked hostile. Instead, it seemed expectant. Darius swallowed hard, stepping forward cautiously. "If this is some kind of test, I get it. I'm not like the others who came before me. I don't want to be." He extended his hand, palm open. The creature hesitated, its glowing eyes narrowing. Then, slowly, it mirrored his movement. Its massive root-like limbs stretched forward, and with a final pulse of light, it pressed against his hand. The moment their touch connected, the clearing exploded with brilliance. Golden energy shot upward from the creature and the heart seed, spiraling into the canopy above. The ground beneath Darius glowed as though lit from within, the energy flowing through him like a torrent of fire and light. The gift of the forest. Darius gasped, falling to his knees as the energy flowed through him. Images flooded his mind again, this time clearer, sharper. He saw the forest's creation, an ancient civilization, the first ones, nurturing Valhalla into life. He saw how humanity had stumbled upon the planet and greedily tried to tear its secrets from the ground, unbalancing everything. But he also saw hope, a chance to restore the bond that had been broken. When the light finally faded, the creature of roots was gone. In its place, a small crystal shard hovered in the air, glowing faintly with the same golden energy as the heartseed. Darius stared at it in awe. What? What is this? Seraph stepped forward, her expression unreadable but softer than before. It is Valhera's gift to you, a fragment of its essence, proof that you have been accepted. Darius reached out, his hand trembling slightly as he plucked the shard from the air. The moment he touched it, warmth spread through him, and he could feel the jungle around him. Every root, every whisper, as though it had become part of him. Accepted, he said, looking at her. For what? To fix what your kind has broken, Seraph replied, and to leave this place alive. Darius blinked, his mind spinning. Wait, I didn't sign up to save a planet. I'm not some hero. Seraph, you are here, she replied simply. And Valhera does not choose lightly. Darius stared down at the crystal shard, its light flickering softly in his palm. For the first time since the crash, he felt connected to something greater than himself. You keep saying chosen, he murmured. But I'm just a pilot. I don't even know where to start. Seraph's golden eyes softened slightly. Then start by surviving. The shard will guide you. The calm before the storm. The forest around them seemed to shift, the hostility from before replaced with a strange serenity. The light filtering through the trees felt warmer, and the air carried a faint hum of approval. Darius tucked the shard into his pack, exhaling deeply. Okay, so the planet doesn't want me dead, yet. That's progress. Seraph smiled faintly. Do not squander this gift, Darius Holt. The trials are far from over. He groaned. Of course they are. It's never easy, is it? As they began walking again, the trees seemed to part for them, the path forward illuminated by faint golden light. Darius couldn't help but glance down at the shard again. He didn't fully understand it, or why Valhera had chosen him, but one thing was certain. The planet wasn't done with him yet. And somewhere in the distance, beneath the hum of the jungle, a low, distant rumble echoed, a warning of the challenges yet to come.